Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Enough to Keep Going podcast. This is episode number 446 for Sunday, August 30th, 2026. We're getting summer almost done here. We'll be heading into the fall with a lot of releases lately that have been coming out. And it looks like, according to our future week here, it looks like we got a lot more coming out. One thing we won't see, though, is good old Squadron 42. That's right. If you know what it is, it's not coming out because of GTA 6. That's right. I'm sure that's why. Anywho, let's get started with the show here. First, let me introduce my co-hosts. First up, we have Mr. DBQ Hams. DB, how you doing?
Yes, I'm sure. Star Citizen Squadron 42 is only about GTA and not about, I don't know, the last decade of development and all the other pieces to it. But yes, no, I'm doing good. We got a lot to talk about tonight. So we had Gamescom this week. So lots of good announcements. We had the GTA trailer on Netflix after all the 2 weeks of leaks and cashing out from the hackers on their Bitcoin. But yeah, we are here ready to talk about games we've been playing in the news of the week.
Yes. And also we have Mr. Game Logic. Game, how's it going?
I'm good, man. Ready to go.
All right, let's get started with segment one, the main GX stories. Mr. DBQ Hams, you got first game up, which is
I'm going to start with my Metroidvania minute here. So this is Aggelos, Aggelos. Aggelos is the Greek pronunciation for angel. So Aggelos 2 is a Metroidvania game. Aggelos 1 came out back in 2018, 2019. I played it on the Switch, and this one I picked up on the Switch. It's out on PC, PlayStation, Xbox, and Switch as well. It's just the Switch version. There is no Switch 2 unique version for it. The first game was very much a Monster Boy type of adventure game, kind of platform adventure. This still has the same type of art style as a Monster Boy game, but is very much a Metroidvania with a large overlapping map. You are an angel, and shortly into the story, you get blighted or cursed or infected and have a dark form and a light form. And so the dark form and the light form each do different attacks. And so one of the key pieces here is that the enemies shoot projectiles, and those projectiles can be absorbed by either the light form or the dark form. And so you're switching back and forth between the two to absorb those attacks. You have different attacks from both the light form and the dark form. They both have kind of a slash and a projectile attack. And in some points, it is very much kind of a, I don't know, almost like an action shooter, because you're roaming around and shooting with your projectiles here. The gameplay here, this is the very beginning of the game where you're recollecting your stuff, and so you don't have any attacks yet. As you can see, the art style is very kind of 16-bit, and it's a really smooth game. It's a whole lot of fun. You've got both a dark world and a light world that you kind of warp back and forth between. The ability to kind of absorb those different attacks and means that as you're fighting a boss will hit you with both dark and light, and so you need to be switching back and forth between them. In the early stages here, you are just the light form. And it is one of the key aspects here is, since you're an angel, you get your wings that allow you to fly, hover, like, so you can only basically fly laterally, that you can't fly up or down. You have a stamina meter on your flight, and so once you jump and you hit the flight button, and if you hold it down, you will fly at that height until your stamina lets off, or until you hit the button again to then drop down and fly at a different height. And that means it gives you a lot of traversal in terms of the ability to get around to different places and hit different things. You've got attacks that will go upwards or downwards. As in this early gameplay, you see in a very Metroidvania style that there's a spot where you can't get to, a glowing orb higher on the ceiling. And so you need to unlock your upward attack to be able to go back and get that. And so there's a lot of back and forth between the spaces. There's a lot of spaces where you are needing to, well, not necessarily needing to. I think that's one of the key here, is using your different attacks and your flight, hover abilities. You can get to various areas on the map, but that they're not always necessary for progression. Oftentimes there's a collectible back behind it. So you're collecting these, kind of light orbs that, after, you start off with getting 100, and then you get extra power-ups similar to like like your energy tanks from Metroid, where you can carry more of them. And so what that allows you, and they are your currency as well. So as you get to different NPCs that can unlock special abilities, depending on how many of the currency that you have, you can unlock those abilities. I'm a couple hours in, not too deep yet, but it's a great little handheld game. Works really well on the Switch 2 and handheld. I'm sure it would run really nicely on the Steam Deck as well. It just hits this kind of like nostalgia spot, but not for anything specific. Like, I was never a Monster Boy fan. I enjoyed Metroids over the years, but this is a really smooth Metroidvania. And I think I picked it up on a launch sale for $16, $17. I think it's $20 total. And so the developer here is Wonder Boy Bobby, small developer, a few people. They've done a couple games, including the first Aggelos, also a Tanuki Strike game back in 2020, but still kind of in this kind of 16-bit type of style. So it's if you're looking for a good Metroidvania, this really feels like a smooth, well-polished Metroidvania. It's not super complicated in terms of its combat. There's a lot of exploration, and you can kind of brute force a lot of the bosses if you've saved up enough, points and powers and explored enough to be able to get some of the power ups that make things a little easier. So in this gameplay, if you're watching the video, this person is struggling trying to get over this gap that they've got to jump high enough and then hover with their wings to be able to fly back up. And so it allows, I don't know, the spirit of adventure and exploration in it is really what has hooked me. It's this idea of exploring and knowing that there's something else around this corner that I can't quite get to. And if I can't get there now, I know that I'm going to be able to get there once I get some other type of power up. And so it makes it really kind of a nice kind of cozy Metroidvania, not something that's super punishing in terms of its gameplay. The art style really resonates if you have any fondness for 16-bit games. And yeah, I found the first game okay, the first Angelos, but this game really feels much more polished. There's a lot of checkpoints, and so it doesn't feel nearly as punishing in terms of needing to go back when you die. And I've died plenty trying to get the rhythm down to certain combat and the flight. But as I have been able to do that, I feel like I'm growing in skill, not just in luck of getting to the right spot. And so it's one of the things that makes a Metroidvania enjoyable, is that there is a skill progression, more so than just kind of a, make your way and feel like you've got there, you snuck through just in the right amount of time. So yeah, so this is Angelos, nothing fancy, but a really polished and enjoyable 16-bit Metroidvania.
All right. Yeah. So you mentioned the first one you weren't like too hot on. What was like the major differences? I know you said there was polish, but is there like something specific, or just kind of a bunch of little things that?
I think the difference between the dark and light characters and the different types of attacks adds some depth to it. The first one also was very much in kind of the Monster Boy, kind of Wonder Boy like template, where there was, it felt very much in this kind of Sega Master System type of mold. And part of that is that I don't have any great nostalgia for the Sega Master System. And so it's a little more clunky. It's a much slower paced game than this one. And so this feels really easy to pick up and play, even if you haven't played any type of Monster Boy previously. Like if you enjoy or have enjoyed some type of Metroidvanias and appreciate 16-bit art, I think there's a lot to like in Angelos too.
Nice. Hey, here we're done. Thanks for joining, and it's just Henriette. Thanks for jumping in the comments. Game Logic, any questions or comments for this game?
Yeah, DBQ. So so the developer you mentioned, is it their first time out of the box with a game?
No, so they did the 2018, 2019 original Angelos, and then also did a Tanuki kind of ninja game back in 2020. So they've been working on this one for quite a while. So, and it kind of shows as well in terms of how refined it feels compared to the previous games. Like the previous games felt fine as like a small little indie dev, but this feels like I would have been very satisfied checking this out from the video store back in 1992 on a weekend rental. So it feels like a full-on release.
So that's kind of one of the questions I want to ask. So it's 8-bit, 16-bit aesthetic. Has there been any, like across the three games now, has there been kind of any like progression in design implementation, or is it just kind of, I hate to use a term like across the 3 games, is it just kind of the same? Like, is it all retro? Like, a thing that I question, I guess, these days is like you're doing a retro game, you're doing nostalgia games, but like there should still be arguably some progression, like from a developer
Right.
as they
Yeah, that
implement each one.
they're trying something to advance the genre, right? And I think that's where Angelos 2 feels more complete than Angelos 1. Angelos 1 felt like an homage to the 8-bit kind of adventure boy or the monster boy genre, where this feels like, yeah, the art style may still feel that way, but it is, you could take the gameplay and the dark light switching ability and make it 3D. You could make it pixelated. You could do lots of different, kind of artistic styles to it, and the gameplay would still hold up. I think that's the thing that has hooked me here. Back to Tao's question of what makes this different, is that the gameplay is really the hook versus just kind of feeding on nostalgia.
Okay, yeah, that's all the questions I have.
Okay, Tao, we talked about this last week. I want to know talk about a Switch 2 game. Let's talk about the Call of Duty beta.
Yes, I jumped in the Call of Duty Modern Warfare 4 beta this past weekend. Well, still am actually, technically, last few days for Nintendo Switch 2. Actually, on I think it was Wednesday or Thursday, they released the single player campaign, which I played a little bit of, not too much. You're kind of in this kind of almost like trench warfare, but it's more modern or futuristic, near future setting, but still kind of in this trench warfare kind of thing. It seemed to run pretty good. Like I didn't really see any stutterers, or graphics are it's Nintendo Switch 2, so it's not going to be obviously high end consoles or even PC quality. But I thought it was decent. Like I didn't really notice anything wrong or like too many like tearing or like just jaggies or anything like that. Maybe just because there's so much going on, and that was I guess the other thing. There's so much going on that I figured it would be like chugging. Maybe there's slowdown and stuff like that. But it seemed pretty good though. I didn't like I said, I didn't really see any real problems. And then I jumped in. Obviously, I think Friday afternoon. They released the multiplayer beta. So there's multiplayer, the regular multiplayer, team deathmatch, all that. And then they actually do have Warzone, but it's only the Resurgence, which is they basically take like kind of a large or a smaller portion of the larger Warzone map, and you're kind of like you just play on that little piece. And then I believe, because I only played like a few games of it back in the day. As long as like one of your teammates is alive, I think you get to spawn back in. And then I think eventually, like within the last, I don't know, few minutes, 5 minutes or something, it's just like a regular kind of a deathmatch kind of a thing. But I didn't get a chance to play that yet. I might try that tonight maybe. And I think it's going until probably tomorrow afternoon, I'm sure. It's usually those betas kind of end. Played a lot of the multiplayer. This is not my footage, but someone else's footage here. Once again, graphically, like it's not PC, it's not high end console quality. One thing I did notice, and it was just like a super little thing, like the graphics overall look pretty good. There's a little bit of obviously downgrading quality, but there's some little things like I don't know if you can tell on this guy. I went in the first person, but you can kind of see like their arms. And that guy he either had short sleeves or he had his sleeves rolled up or anything, but he was supposed to have like a hairy arms, but it's like the hair is like almost like translucent, almost like it's kind of there sometimes and kind of not, like depending on the light, how the light hits it and stuff. So it's not totally detailed like in other games. But once again, you're running around, you're going so fast, you don't really notice that. I just happened to notice it because I was waiting for to load into the game. They kind of show your group as you're loading into the game, so I just kind of noticed that. It was just kind of a dumb goofy thing, but just little details like that. It's like sometimes it's just doesn't look the greatest, but like I said, overall it's, you're running around. Once again, I did see some slowdown in here, maybe just because it's a multiplayer game. Obviously could be my connection, or it's a whole number of things that are going on. And Thrifty says it's 30, I believe it is. Yeah, I don't think it's 60 as far as I know. 30 FPS. but I was having fun. I didn't play the last one that came out last year. I forgot which one is that game legend, because that's 7 or I don't
Yeah,
remember which.
Black Ops 7.
Black Ops 7, right? Okay. Yeah, I didn't play 7. I played 6, but I skipped 7. And obviously, this is Modern Warfare, so I haven't played a Modern Warfare game in like forever. So I was actually having a lot of fun with it. There's, obviously they have the kill streaks. You have little gadget sticks you can use. There's like a little drone. I think they actually showed it on that clip. It kind of flew by the guy, but that drone actually pings out people. And then there's like a bunch of other like gadgets and stuff that you can use. Obviously, it's Call of Duty, so it's pretty much same old. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I had fun. I'm glad in this one, because I know in the last couple of Black Ops that I played, shotgun was pretty nerfed, but here it's kind of strong again. At least the starter shotgun that you get, pretty much from like close to medium-ish. I guess it kind of depends on what kind of attachments you put on there too. It's pretty much a one shot, one kill, which is nice. Like in Black Ops, they kind of nerfed it, and it took at least 2 and possibly even 3 shots sometimes. At least when I was playing, it took 3 shots. It always seemed. But yeah, no, I was having a lot of fun with it. Surprisingly, I did. Obviously when you start off, you get to progress the weapons. So, those starter weapons are pretty rough, when you're first starting out. So I was having a little bit of problems. But once I started getting my attachments going, putting those on, I was pretty much, at least in the top half of the player count, at the end. Sometimes three or 4. But usually, it was like 4 or 5, or 3 or 4 or 5 sometimes. So, but yeah, I was pleasantly surprised. The only problem I had is I had to switch my controller, because I was playing with like I think an old PowerA, that PowerA brand, which is one of the third-party controllers. And I don't know if it's just because of that controller, maybe because it's kind of old. It's like one of the first ones I ever got. Like the clicking into the sticks is a little bit there was a lot of delay, and sometimes it just didn't work. So that's why I was kind of thinking maybe it was just the controller. Once I switched to one of my Pro controllers, I was fine. Like I was able to go through and play without any issues. So that was kind of nice. Playing multiplayer. So I was in just with a pool of everybody. So other consoles, PC, just everybody I was playing with. It looked like, though, for as far as I could tell, they were pretty much trying to put me with at least the other consoles for the most part. I did see every once in a while like little PC icon in there. Although the icon's a little weird, I'm not really sure sometimes like if it's PC or not, because sometimes I would see like I think all the other consoles come up as just like a monitor with like a little box, obviously, next to it, I believe. But sometimes I would see like a PC symbol next to that, or a mouse symbol next to that. So I was like, so is that PC or mouse? But other times I think the PC symbol is just like a big tower, basically. So it's just a big box. So I was a little confused sometimes, but it looked like I was just being put in with other consoles for the most part. So that was kind of nice. So I think that's why another reason I was, doing fairly decent, because I'm sure if it was like mostly PCs, I would probably just been utterly destroyed. Like it wouldn't have mattered. But yeah, I mean, I really had a good time with it, and I'm probably going to pick it up, maybe not on day one, but within the first few weeks or so when it comes out, just to get back into it. And yeah, I have a PC. I have back Xbox Series X, but I've been kind of just using my Switch lately as my primary console. So it's kind of nice to have that on there. When I'm here at home, obviously, I'd play it docked. I'm not gonna play this. I can't play shooters on the I just with the Joy-Cons. Sitting around, I'd have to dock it. But when I'm out and about or something, waiting for my kids' practice or something, I can jump in and play some campaign or something. So get through that. So I haven't played really the campaigns in a while, so that'd be kind of nice to be able to do that. So yeah, so I did have some video, but unfortunately I didn't get a chance to upload it. So maybe next week I can kind of get that together and kind of show you how that was. But they're pretty much the same thing as they're showing here. So any questions?
Lots.
I know you had Friday questions.
You're gonna have to close a gap for me, right? Because I'm hearing your description and I'm watching Kit and Krista's footage. So obviously there's potentially some dissonance. But like I'm watching this game and this does not look like Call of Duty. This does not look like the Call of Duty I've been playing for the last few years. None of these people are sliding. None of these people are diving. None of these people are bouncing off walls. There's no speed to this whatsoever. Like, this looks like Counter-Strike. like
So, but didn't they removed Omni movement in this beta? Like, it is not in this build, this game. The whole idea of Omni movement. I think the only movement that I've heard of is the slide.
so even
Yeah,
I mean you could see there's no, like I've seen the person on like the shooter sliding, and their sliding is very muted. Like, so have they nerfed? Like, I mean, apparently, like, there's a chunk of the movement that they've nerfed, but I mean, even like this, like the speed, and I'm like, and the other thing is like, I'm looking at this, and this looks closer, much closer to Rainbow Six Siege than Call of Duty. Like the person stopping at the corners, leaning around corners, like most matches of Call of Duty, like almost nobody uses like the lean mechanic. People are sprinting around corners. They're breaking into your view. You've got a few seconds to like track right your crosshair onto them. You know, otherwise you're gonna miss them. They're gonna start shooting you, and you lose the TTK battle. So like this, the mechanics I'm seeing here on Switch 2 look radically different than what I'm accustomed to playing. Is that? I mean,
Yeah,
what was?
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say I don't know who's playing this, but when I was playing, it was Call of Duty. Like I'm running around, I'm sliding. Yeah, there's no Omni movement, but you know you can still slide. You can kind of do the kind of dive. It's the same button, so if you hit it like just once, you tap it, you slide. Otherwise, if you hold it, you know you kind of dive forward or whatever. Yeah, I mean everybody was. I mean it was Call of Duty when I was playing it. Like everybody's running around. I don't know who's playing this. I don't know if it's Cut and Krista or if it's just because it's like like the developer or something just kind of showing off stuff. But yeah, everybody's like full sprint. I actually thought it was, it's been a while. It's been a couple of years since I played Call of Duty. But I thought it was a little bit faster than Black Ops when I was playing, as far as like the running and stuff. I think it seemed like you have an unlimited run, just like in the last few games. So there's not like a stamina bar or anything. So there is some
in the current games you have a sprint, and then you have like a combat sprint, and your combat sprint doesn't last for has a limited amount of time, and then you stack, and then your perks will extend that, and then if you stack those perks, they can extend that even further.
Right. Yeah. So you'd have that like faster sprint, which I could have sworn I didn't have that all the time. I thought it was just connected to a perk, but it's possible I just wasn't using it like all the time, because I kind of even when I was playing that like Black Ops and stuff, like I kind of forget I would have that because I was just doing the normal run. Yeah, like I said, I never really used it, so it always seemed kind of fast enough as it is. So I don't know why I guess they just want it faster, and that's one of the complaints that I heard, that I've seen. I shouldn't say heard, but I've seen online, is that it's too fast. I mean, take that as what you will, but like I said, it seemed faster to me. But like I said, I haven't played in a while, so coming from like Battlefield, which is way slower, or sometimes they do play Siege, so obviously there's a sprint in there, but it's not like I think there you have a stamina bar, so it's like super small. So it's Call of Duty, so it's always going to be kind of faster anyways. So
it's interesting that you're hearing it's too fast, and the places that I'm looking are talking about it being too slow. That without the Omni movement, that people feel like it is a step back in terms of its combat pace. So I guess it depends on what you're looking for, right? And what type of Call of Duty you've got accustomed to or have enjoyed over the years.
Yeah. And the Omni movement, when it first came out, I think it came out in 6, right? Was the first game, or maybe 5? I'm not sure.
Yeah, it was it was the one before the current one.
The current one, right? And I used it quite a bit, but when I was playing the next one, I played a little bit of the next one. I kind of forgot about it. I didn't even use it anymore. So I mean, it was cool. Like you can do some cool stuff with it, but I think it was mostly. I think I just played the beta for the last one because I didn't buy that one, and like I said, I totally forgot about it. So it's like it was fine. Like I was still able to slide, and I was still able to just do a dive if I wanted to, and really that's all you need. So I did play 3 different modes. Well, yeah, 3 different modes. So I did regular team deathmatch. I did kill confirmed, and then one called inflation, which I don't know if they've had anything like this before in the Black Ops series. But basically, it's kind of like kill confirmed. So when you kill somebody, they drop money, and then when you get to a certain I don't know if it's a certain dollar amount or if it's just at the end of the round, whoever has the most money wins the match. So, and then during the gameplay, like after the first couple minutes, there's like a high value target. Like obviously, if you kill them, they drop a lot more money, so that helps. But I don't think as you're collecting money, like I think you always have a set amount of money on you. So it's not like if I collected, 4 different people's, their money from after killing them. I think I still stay whatever. I don't know. I think it's like 20,000 or 30,000 or something like that. Some low. I don't think that adds up. I don't think. I wasn't kind of paying attention, but it's just because I was running around and doing stuff. So, but other than those 3 match types, I didn't play any. There's like domination. There's all the other ones, search and destroy and stuff like that. I think there was another new one. I don't remember what it's called, but you pick up some kind of device, almost like a capture flag. You pick up a device and you have to plant it in the opposite team's base, basically. So kind of like capture flag, they call it something different. I can't know, whatever Call of Duty does. So, but yeah, those are the only modes so far that I've played.
Okay.
But yeah, yep, I really enjoyed it. So, like I said, probably pick it up. Any other questions on that one? No. All right. Game Magic, you have a new game. Actually, I'm quite interested in because I was kind of watching this. What was it? I think the first time I saw it was during the Summer Games Fest or something like that. So maybe even earlier than that. Talk about Resonance, A Plague's Tale Legacy.
Yeah, so this was a game that I got interested in kind of in the walk up to the release. I had kind of been hanging back from it because I've never played either of I haven't played the previous 2 Plague Tale games. Wasn't interested in them. I'm not a stealth gamer. I don't like that stuff. I lose my patience. I'm not a person who and we've talked about it on the show too, right? Like I don't like games that are not only stealth heavy, but then on top of that, if you hit the tripwire, right, and alert someone to your presence, then you have like no ability, right, to fight back. I do like games where, like an Assassin's Creed game, right, where you have stealth, but if you set off the tripwire, you have the ability to fight back. And if you fight back quickly and well enough, and like tactically approach the situation appropriately, you can actually defeat them and prevent the alarm from being raised, right? So that's kind of the games that I get into. As I started digging into this more in the walk up to release, I started realizing, I had realized that this was, it took me off guard the first time they showed it at Summer Game Fest, which I think was actually last year, was the initial reveal. And I'm watching it, and then they reveal on the screen it's a Plague Tale game. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like there's too much swordplay, there's too much combat. So I started then when they showed it again at Summer Game Fest 2026, I started paying a little more attention, started pulling some details on it, and got really interested in what was going down here. I kind of extensively looked at it in the week leading up to release, and then when I saw the reviews drop, decided that it was safe enough to go into the pool. I was particularly concerned about performance, as I am with every game these days. So like I said, I grabbed this on day one, started getting into it. Jury's out a little bit on scalability of performance. On a high-end system, it performs like just, it's I can't even describe it. On an RTX 5080, it's basically everything cranked up. And I'm getting more frames out than the monitor that I can render, right? That it's on a 144 hertz monitor. The one slight knock against the game is there is no ray tracing. The developers decided to skip that in order to focus on image quality and performance. So without ray tracing, again, the game runs wonderfully on an RTX 5080. I get like 250 frames per second. On an RTX 40, and so that is the same frame rate that I'm getting on that box out of Assassin's Creed Black Flag Resynced with ray tracing. So, I mean, it's comparative. Like there, you could definitely argue that there's a gap there, but if you ignore that, the game plays well. Now here I'm on an RTX 3080 Ti system, and there are problems. I had to crank everything down to low and set DLSS on ultra performance in order to get it to run like in the 70 to 90 frames per second. Now that being said, image quality is still pretty good, even with everything cranked down low. So I'm not, and I'm playing at 4K, right? So the other option I could do would be to take it and crank down the resolution, which would probably get me a significant bump in performance, and then I could crank up, some of the graphical effects. But even at low, there's still good image quality, and the main reason I cranked it down to low was in the opening scene that you saw right there. I was kind of okay with it hovering around 60 with a couple of dips, but as you can see, this is a parry intensive game, and so I went into a fight with a mini boss, and I was getting dips, and I was like, no, like we're not doing that. Like, so I had to make some changes. I was like, we're not going to be fighting mini bosses here in a parry game, getting dips below 60 frames per second. So I went back and made that adjustment. Let's see, Henry Heck said, the game is dope, though I've been playing it a bit, really enjoying it both on the console and on the cloud. Very cool. There's a couple other detractions, right? Like the game is puzzle heavy in terms of the frequency and amount of puzzles. It's not puzzle heavy in terms of the difficulty. But what happens is the combat is solid enough and it's intricate enough that, right, the way they're presenting you challenge in combat is really by the gang mechanism, right, by swarming. So you go into combat, and the way they kind of crank it up is they present more enemies. So it's kind of like a Spider-Man kind of thing. Like you're always, it's always like 1v6 or 1v7. And they crank up the number of enemies, and then they start cranking up the variation in the enemy. So, in one of these combat sequences in this video, it's like there's 3 different types of enemies. And so all of those enemies are attacking with different battle rhythms. Their power-up swings are coming at a different drum beat. There are yellow highlight attacks, which are things you can parry that give you an attack opportunity. And then there are red hue attacks that the enemies make that you have to just dodge. But also, as you progress into the game and you get more skilled, you can hit perfect dodges that actually knock their weapon aside with your dagger, and it gives you an opening to get in there and make a big hit. It was kind of funny in the walk up to this, like the devs made not a super big deal, but they made some commentary around like, this is not like a skill tree type game. It's not big RPG elements. You're just going to gain additional attacks and weapons and skills on the way through. And then I go into the game, there's a skill tree in the game, right? I get, so, maybe it's not as big a deal as like, the Wolverine skill tree, but there's a skill tree. So you have the ability to go in and you pick up these things called resonance points. And then you have the ability to go in and, basically make a build of Sophia. So your playthrough is going to be different, right, than other players' playthroughs. But the main detraction, I think, for me personally is the lull of the puzzles. The puzzles are not difficult; they are manageable. I made a very big deal last night on the games memo where I said, look, at this age, I know that I don't like puzzles, and so, like, if I don't get a puzzle like within 5 minutes, then I'm just going to Google it. Like I'm beyond the point of shame. But here I haven't Googled any puzzles, and I'm about 4.5, 5 hours in. I either at chapter 6 or just before chapter 6. And every time I'm hitting that 5-minute point where I feel like I would go Google a puzzle, I'm close enough to figuring out the puzzle that I'm like, okay, I'm not going to bother, right? Like putting my controller down to go look it up. But like I said, the big thing is pacing, right? And so you get combat feels good. You go into a fight with like 3 or 4 different enemy types. You encounter some challenge and you surmount it. And then after that fight's over, what do you feel? What do I feel? I feel like, okay, great, I'm ready for another fight. Right? But what happens is then you go into another long sequence of, very pedestrian kind of traversal and puzzles. When I say pedestrian, it's like, like I'd say that in comparison to something like Uncharted 4, where you're doing traversal, but it's exciting and it's exhilarating, and Nathan is like, making big swings and covering long distances, right, with the grappling hook. There are things that you can miss. There are jumps that you can miss. Here, there's not really that. Like, there's not really too much of a jump. Like, I will miss jumps occasionally, usually because you make a controller flaw. But like, there's not real challenge, right? The traversal is also a little bit of a puzzle itself, because sometimes you're just trying to find the right path, right, to get to a thing. Sometimes there are traps or something along your path, so you're trying to, again, it's mimicking traversal, but it's really kind of a puzzle buried in the traversal. So those things can kind of like get to you to a point where you're like, it's late at night, you're playing this thing, and you're like, look, I want to fight, but I've got to get through this section. There's a particular like real slowdown after maybe the opening hour or so of the game, where you go into like a 45-minute to 1 hour lull where it's just traversal and puzzles. So I'm not certain if the rest of the game, it doesn't feel like that breaking, in terms of like it's like a breaking force on the momentum of the game. It gets a little more equitable, but it's still kind of lengthy, right? That puzzle, that puzzle span. So it's just, Henry says, the combat has a lot more to it than I thought it would. I was really surprised. They have red glow to indicate you have to break the defense with a kick or a drop kick. Yeah. So there's like, the combat gets very layered, and you guys have heard me talk about like, there's this careful, intricate balance in combat between giving you enough tools to give you providence on how you're going to approach a given fight, versus giving you so many tools that they're splayed all over the controller to the point where like combat is actually hard because the OODA loop and the complexity of the number of toggles you can hit is just way too many. And so you either default to just using like 3, components of like a 12 stack attack capability and ignoring all the other stuff. Or you just get flustered because you're constantly like trying to use all 12, and then you get confused, you don't remember controls and all that kind of stuff. So this, I think, is pretty appropriately balanced right now. Although, like I said, it's part of the bathtub of the pacing, because again, you can go through a fight, you can experience some challenge, you can get kind of behind because one of the things is when you kill an enemy, you earn a health point back. So you have a 3 pip health bar. And so in the course of a fight, it's kind of like a fighting game, right? You can get knocked down to where you have 1 health pip left, but then you kill 2 enemies and you're back, right? So you can encounter this adversity in battle, and then the tide of the fight can turn, and you can go up and win the fight. Now, but then after that, let's say you go into your skill tree, right? And you unlock something else with resonance points. Now the next fight you go into, you have another tool in the toolkit, right? And then you have to learn to apply it by trying it out a few times. And then say it feels good. Say you have that turn of tide. Let's say you get down, you have that turn of tide. You climb back up out of the bathtub. But then the problem is your next fight might not be for another like 20 or 30 minutes. So it's very difficult to kind of hit that apogee of proficiency and then maintain it, right? Because the next fight is so long, and after you hit that apogee, right, you're kind of on a downhill roller coaster, right, part of the ride, because maintaining that proficiency is through repetitions and through frequency of repetitions, right? So there are some imperfections here, but the game is definitely, fun. And like Henry is saying, it's kind of surprising that the combat is as layered as it is.
Yeah, the one thing I was going to ask was about the flow, which obviously you just answered, and also if it was more like maybe more actiony, but kind of more like the Tomb Raider reboots. But it seems like it's, I don't know if you ever played the Tomb Raider reboots. It seems like it's probably, I'm trying to remember because I played the first one and a little bit of the second one, but those are pretty puzzle heavy for the most part. So I don't know if you ever played those ones.
Yeah,
But I
I
guess
mean,
Uncharted 2 is kind of the same. Kind of
yeah. I spent time with them. The difference is the combat in either Tomb Raider or the Uncharted games is definitely above this one. It's a little unfair because obviously I'm going to prefer something with guns than just strictly melee. But the combat and the traversal in those games, I feel like, is a couple levels above this one. So when you go into a bathtub with puzzles, now I will say Uncharted is the right kind of level of puzzles for me. I've also said like the God of War 2018 games are like the right level of puzzle. Tomb Raider level puzzles, those are things that are a pain in my butt. Those are the things that I hit 5 minutes and I'm Googling it, right? Because I don't have time to be bothered. So the puzzles are the right level in the Uncharted games and God of War games, but the combat is so much better in any of those three games, right? Uncharted, God of War, and Tomb Raider, that the puzzle lulls don't feel as bad, and the puzzle lulls also are not as long as they are in this one. Like you hit a puzzle in Uncharted, and then you move past it, right? And then you get pretty lengthy series of set piece to set piece to set piece of combat. So I feel like Uncharted and God of War, like it's about a 1-to-4 ratio, right? You get one puzzle and you get like 4 times as lengthy combat sequences, whereas this one it's kind of bordering on half and half, and maybe like 60%, maybe 60 or 70% puzzle time versus 30% combat time, and that's kind of like I said, where you kind of feel like a ragged edge, right, to the pacing.
And then you said this is totally melee, right? There's no guns, but there's like no bow and arrow or anything like that, or throwing knives or stuff like that. As you've seen so far,
you do have thrown, so it's kind of a neat mechanic. As you fight people on the battlefield, they will drop weapons, or there will be like jars and things strewn around, and you can pick any of those up and throw them. Or there's also some like nearness contextualization. So it's like if she picks up one of those jars, but the enemy is in close proximity, she'll smash the enemy on the head with the jar. The other thing is then one of the resonance skills that I have picked up allows you to then basically store any picked up projectile. So you can pick a projectile up and not throw it right away. And then anytime later in combat, you can hit the RS stick, the stick button in, and she'll throw that projectile. And so it's similar to, I think, Ghost of Yote has a similar mechanic to that, where enemies will drop stuff on the battlefield, and then Yatsu can like pick it up and like throw it at an enemy, and that's a one in Yote, that's a one-shot kill. I don't necessarily think it's one shot here. I think it often winds up being one shot because sometimes the enemy is down to one shot. But then also it's sometimes not, because sometimes the enemy is like, you see the heavier like mini bosses, like they have a shield, and so they may absorb part of the hit. So I don't think it works exactly the same in terms of effectiveness, but they do have that. She also has a grappling hook, which she can toss at enemies and pull them towards her. And those can work out one of three ways. Often you're doing that to an archer, because the archers are firing arrows at you. They're ranged in distance and they're standing off. You can't get to them. Sometimes they're on an elevated a level that you can't get up to, so you pull them down. Often that will kill them. When they come in, they'll die immediately just from the impact, or you can just one hit them, and that will take them out. You can do it with other enemies on the ground, and you will pull them to you, and if you execute a strike, it will just take them out right away. But as the game progresses, what happens is you throw the grappling hook, yank them towards you, and mid-air on their way to you, they will attack. And so they'll either hit you, or eventually you learn to parry that, and then that gives you an opening to take them out as well. But that's the only ranged kind of combat that I've been introduced to so far. That Sophia can do.
Feels pretty deep overall in terms of the variety of movesets and the possibilities of chaining them together and the timing aspect of it. Like, it is much deeper than what the previous two Plague Tales really were.
Yeah, absolutely. It is. I mean, for somebody looking for action and combat, it is head and shoulders above the previous two games. Now, I have heard a comment from one person, and I'm sure that it probably applies to other people. Is there are some people who liked Plague Tale games because they were that deep stealth and they weren't super actiony. And I've heard that they don't like this one as much because it changes the formula so much. But the reality is I mean, and again, this comes from kind of reading and listening to the developer interviews. And what they said is this is not Plague Tale 3, right? This was not meant to be the third chapter in the Plague Tale. In that Plague Tale story, they feel like that story was done with the first two games, and so this is just a completely different story and effectively in a different genre, really, set in the same world. So your mileage will vary. Definitely read up and know what you're getting into.
And pretty much like linear, like it's not open world, right? You can't or is it kind of open areas? Looks like it's pretty much linear from what I've seen so far. It is linear, but you get into, I guess I would say you get into hubs. So you do get into areas and chapters of the game where once you're in a given biodome, then you have provenance to go like in one of 6 directions or whatever. So like the area I'm in now, you're in this big hub room where you're trying to like get these 3 interlocks, right, to ratchet back. And so you are given some provenance over different sub areas from that central hub to go into in whatever order you want. But you're locked into pursuing different paths to solve that one puzzle, right? And then along the way there are other pieces that are just like straight up linear. 2 other creative things of note that I didn't realize as I was getting into this game. Number one, I did not realize that Asobo is the same studio that does Microsoft Flight Simulator. I know what studio does Microsoft Flight Simulator. I didn't know that they were the same studio that does this, that has been doing this series of games. So that's number one. And one of the reasons for the performance of this game is this is their in-house proprietary engine, Zuna. And as you can imagine, knowing and understanding everything that the Microsoft Flight Simulator games have to do with all the streaming geography and real-time weather and yada, 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 and that game is able to hit 60 frames per second on performant platforms and has ray tracing, you can obviously see how using that same engine for this game without ray tracing, again, on a performance system, easily allows it to clear, 60 frames per second with a lot of detail. So... Nice. Hi, DB, any other questions?
No, I'm really enjoying the gameplay. I played a little bit of Plague Tale back in the day. This feels very kind of almost Assassin's Creed-y in terms of its parrying, where it's not quite complete Souls-like, but there's some combat there and lots of movement. So, yeah, I did not have this on my radar, but what you're showing and how you're talking about it definitely speaks highly of it.
Nice. All right. That is it for the main GX stories for tonight. Let's jump into news headlines, which we got quite a bit to talk about. We'll just start first with Gamescom. It was this past week, and they had their opening night live, where they're basically announcing all the different games for the well, I would say mostly for next year, but there's some stuff from this year also. So we're not going to go over all of them. I don't know if it was just me, but it seemed like there was a lot of games announced in this and in the future game show. Maybe more than usual, or maybe I just never really paid too much attention to this most of the time. But I don't know. I thought it was just me. So we're not going to go, like I said, we're not going to go through all the games, but I think we've each picked a few games here to talk about. Let's start with the opening night live. Let's start with you, DB. What was your first pick here that kind of jumped out at you?
So my first pick was the game that led off the show is Rainbow Six Tactics. So that was I was pleasantly surprised, right? And part of this is the hype and the lead up to this week's release of Star Wars Zero Company, which was an XCOM, Firaxis game. But the Rainbow Six Siege Tactics definitely feels like, I don't know, it feels like classic Rainbow Six, right? Like you are placing your breaching charges and you're positioning people and then you're running things through and seeing how it goes. Like, as someone who played original Rainbow Six back on PC, this is Rainbow Six to me. And so I'm excited for it. I think, it looks, it's a relatively small scoped game for an Ubisoft game, which is promising. That means that it's probably going to hit its time frame that it's targeting. It's also, since it's an Ubisoft game, it is going to have plenty of DLC and support throughout the time. I like the idea of using the Rainbow Six Siege operators as characters, because they've created these characters over the years that all have different special abilities, and now here's kind of a tactical way to play with them. So yeah, Henry, heck, it was definitely a surprise to me as well. And yeah, and coming off of the Division mobile game, like, it's great to see it be a full-fledged game. So that's my first pick.
I was a little disappointed because I thought it was just going to be like a regular. I thought it was just going to be going back to like what Rainbow Siege was, not more of a kind of isometric tactical game like this one is. But this still looks pretty cool. Yeah, I think that's good that they're using the different operators. So that's kind of nice. Game Logic. Any comments or?
Yeah, and again, I'm like DBQ, like old school graybeard, dyed in the wool, Rainbow Six, right, player. Like,
yeah,
me and my buddies playing on my LAN, right, Rainbow Six Rogue Spear. Me having like 4 computers going with everything. Back in the day when they used to try and say that you couldn't, games were on a disc, so you had to have the disc in the thing, and so there had to be, I will just say, workarounds to playing with one copy of a game on a LAN on PC.
Hey, Dean Chavez supports that creative problem solving. So
it was super weird, just in terms of it's this very neat convergence of a lot of things that are Rainbow Six, right? There's the pre-planning aspect, which you guys have heard me lament here before, right? That, like, back in the day, DBQ, one of the big things was you could pick your team, you could pick their loadouts. Sometimes you would have 2 fire teams, and so you would have 8 operators, and so each team could have like different gear. And then you could pick like entry points. You could pick go code points, of places that they were going to stop and wait for the other team to advance, yada yada. So that whole planning thing seems to be like part of this game, which is great. I agree, DBQ. Cool that they use the operators. Some of the cutscenes and the cinematics. It also seems like there were characters there from the Tom Clancy books, so that was a neat hook. What's weird to me is how this game is coming about, and I haven't had a chance to pull the thread on it, because they just significantly downsized Red Storm in North Carolina. So I'm like, who's doing this game?
Did they even keep it open? I thought it was closed. I
believe it's open, but it is explicitly now a support. I mean, they've been the reality is they've been a support studio for a very long time.
For a long time, yeah.
Which is kind of sad. But and they've been and they used to do a lot of work on the Division games. So I'm like, well, how in the world are they supporting the Division? Are they supporting this? Who's doing it? Is this even being done in-house in Ubisoft, or is this outsourced contract work? That's what I suspect is going on, given what's going on at Ubisoft. So the point was, the whole thing would just landed weirdly on the landscape, and like Henry Heck said, there's no way I would have predicted anything like this was coming because of what's going on at Ubisoft. So yeah, but neat. I'm not particularly in this realm right now with like the XCOM kind of games, and like Star Wars Zero Company just dropped. Like that's not my bag right now, but it is a neat thing to see drop. Also neat that they tried a spin-off before with Rainbow Six Quarantine, and that didn't really land well. Although I think like every other Ubisoft game, I think the last time I checked in on it, it has grassrooted some weird like corner niche, like fiercely loyal community that may be small but is like loving that game. So yeah, this is neat, and hopefully this will go the same route, right? And like you said, DBQ appears very modular, very easy to spin out like new scenarios and stack this with content. It would also be really cool if they give developer tools, right? So this could be supported by the mod community.
Yeah, have some fan maps. Yep.
Yeah,
mod
and
maps.
the mod community can build missions and stuff for it too. Yep.
Nice. You can play as a Simpson character and go through a campaign. Game Logic, actually stay on the mic. What's your first game here that popped out at you?
Oh man, you kind of sniped me. I'll get it for you here in just a second.
I can go if you want to.
No, I have it right here at my fingertips.
Okay.
I just didn't have it queued.
No problem.
So this was easily my game of the show. And it also is in kind of a weird spot. And so this is 1001 Threads Amazon, which is a game built. It's built on like Arabian mythology. It's like I'm watching the game and I see the traversal and I see the fluidity and the elegance of the combat, and I'm already kind of hooked. But then they mentioned, because I just recently watched Miss Marvel, right, with the family, the TV show, and as soon as they said the word that like one of your key enemies were the Djinn, I was like, oh, I'm there, like I'm locked in. But the super curious thing about this is, so the studio putting this together, this is their first time out of the box with a game. This is co-op, and so this is one player to up to three player co-op. When you see the three characters there, dare I say, character kind of classes, which also starts making you think of. And I'm probably gonna flip this. Nope. Okay, didn't. All right, I was able to pull my notes out without flipping the screen, which makes you think about Destiny 2. Well, lo and behold, and part of the pedigree of this studio is that they have veterans of Bungie on it. So this is coming from a team called MBC Game Studio, who are based out of Riyadh and London, backed by the MBC Group. Studio's debut game will built over roughly 3 years by a fully remote international team assembled by CEO Daniel Engelhart and COO Trevor Williams, with veterans of BioWare, Hi-Res Studios, Ubisoft Montreal, and Bungie among its ranks. So interestingly enough, this game it's targeted for 2027. It is not up on Steam for pre-order yet. It is coming to PS5, Xbox Series X and S, Nintendo Switch 2, and PC. So it is similar. It is part of the mythology. Part of the mythology backing it is supposedly sorry. Is 1001 Nights, and some other broader Arabic folklore. So super excited about this one, to say the least.
Nice. Yeah, that one actually, I didn't have that on my list, but yeah, it definitely piqued my interest during the show. My first one up here is one of the earlier games in the show, Ananta, I believe that's how you say it. Kind of this open world, what they're calling anime GTA. You're playing this character in this big open world city, and I didn't realize, and it's coming out in January 2027. I didn't realize it was a free to play game, which is kind of weird because it's just like an RPG. I don't think it's like multiplayer as far as I can tell, which is kind of weird, I guess. So I don't know. I guess they'll make their money in like cosmetics and stuff, I suppose. But yeah, it just looks just really cool. And I think this was I was just looking it up too. Announced like a few years ago, actually, back in 2023, under a different name, just called Project Mugen. But obviously has its working title now, or its final title. But yeah, it looks really cool. It's just kind of like I said, it's anime GTA. You're going traversing this like large city. you can do everything in open world. You take take cars, or I think you can have like grappling hook abilities and stuff like that, and just other different ways you can kind of go across the city. So it looks really cool. I'm always kind of interested in anime type stuff, so it's definitely on my radar. And like I said, I was really surprised it's kind of it's a free to play game, so it's kind of weird, but definitely looking forward to it when it comes out next year. See you later, Henry Heck. Thanks for, or I'm sorry,
It was
here we go.
Hero, I
Thanks
think.
for joining us. Yeah.
So yeah, and I mean, and I'm trying to say this without like seeming like I'm throwing shade or slander at it. But yeah, there were a lot of NC games. There were a lot of NC games, Nexon,
Hoyoverse.
yes, a lot of games out of Korea here that past pedigrees up to this point is they're they lean in the direction of the free to play gacha games. But I will say a lot of them also like this one too, remarkably kind of took creative leanings that are canted slightly differently than those games, although the artistic style and approach is the same. But yeah, that's kind of where I am with a lot of these. It's a wait and see to see how the monetization goes and like what their approach to it is. But a lot of them were very interesting. And like there was one that was not on my list, was almost on my list. It's on my list of games that I'm going to watch, but it's not on my list of games that are really high up, which was a Like or Die, which was like a multiplayer kind of Fortnite-ish based, combat game. But again, it's by like one of those Korean studios, so I'm kind of lightly watching it. But yeah, this caught my eye too.
That was a nice way to call out a game that wasn't on your list, but now it got mentioned. So congratulations, Game Logic.
Back in the back door. Yeah, this is from a game studio, Naked Rain, under NetEase. So yeah, it's one of those NetEase games or NetEase studios. DB, your next game that
Okay. I'm going to go with a small game that was a total surprise to me, which is Pony Island 2 Panda Circus. So Pony Island is done by Daniel Mullins. Pony Island, the original, came out back in 2016. Yeah, 2016. And then he did the Inscription game, the kind of devil card game from a few years back. And the real hook here is that most of these games have multi kind of meta layers and commentary going through them. Like there is a gameplay mechanic, but then there is something else. Like Pony Island, the original, starts off as this simple kind of pixelated thing and morphs into a whole different meta commentary and meaning and a little bit of horror in there. And so this feels much more like a full-on game compared to the kind of simple pixelated that Pony Island 1 was. But it's got multiple different art styles. And, I appreciate the writing that he has done in the past. And so I'm anticipating that this, while it may seem like this hodgepodge of different game styles, there is going to be multiple kind of layers of narrative going on with it as well. And so I'm very interested to see what this looks like and how it turns out. It seems like a kind of the biggest project that he's done to this date. So that's Pony Island 2, which is coming out in April, as it says right there, April of 27.
Nice. Yeah, looks definitely interesting. Game Logic, your next game.
I am going over the things in my quiver and trying to figure out what order I should pull them in. I've got.
I'd be interested to see if we have any crossovers here or any doubles that we both liked.
Yeah. And one callback, one alibi round, I do want to say, going back to Residents: A Plague Tale, one of the things I forgot to mention, which bears mentioning and needs to be mentioned, is script writing and voice acting in that game on point. I have my detractions about like graphics and performance, graphical fidelity, combat animations, like, some slight pacing, but I do have to say script writing and voice acting performances are top notch. Absolutely A+. So my next game is Star Wars Galactic Racer, which the dynamic of Gamescom and Future Game Show is very super interesting. It was super interesting to kind of, as DBQ says, to kind of navel gaze and reflect back on my own journey across watching them, because one of my knocks on Gamescom opening night live was that so many games, I put on my watch list, but I'm like, I have no idea what this game is about. The trailer just really told me nothing, and I tried to be very conservative about games that I put on my list that I was like, oh, the graphics look really good. Right. But fortunately for a lot of them, and it's super interesting how you market your game, right? Because if you go to opening night live with a trailer that doesn't convey what your game is about, and you don't do a reattack at Future Game Show, then your game is more likely to get lost right in the weeds. The games that showed on opening night live and then had a deep dive on Future Game Show, superb marketing approach, because so many of them I was lightly interested, or some of them weren't even on my list, but then there was a deep dive and I was like, oh, okay, this is something to pay attention to. Star Wars Galactic Racer, I was not a fan of Star Wars Episode 1 Racer, so this game has come across in its initial presentations as a spiritual successor to that game, and so because I wasn't interested in the predecessor, I wasn't interested in this one. By the way, I will also mention, as I said on the games memo last night, it's good for us to revisit our history. I would swear in my mind that game is called Star Wars Episode 1 Pod Racer. It is actually called Star Wars Episode 1 Racer.
Just Racer. Yeah.
But when we get into this deep dive and they started talking about the different vehicle classes in this game and how they all perform differently, and what the developers are trying to kind of bring across in the game. And then I got to see these graphics, but this is another huge recommendation of mine. You guys who run around saying, the game didn't look that impressive, blah, blah, blah. You guys are watching a live stream, right? And you're not seeing the full bit depth fidelity. Go back and watch these trailers when they are uploaded to YouTube, fully rendered at 4K, have had time to bake, and fully resolve resolution in background processing to because people who don't do YouTube videos maybe don't understand that whole workflow that happens in the cloud. 9 times out of 10, these games will look way more graphically impressive when you go back and watch the 4K video. So yeah, I'm sold on this game after listening to the developers deep dive. This game on Steam. So I wishlisted all the games that are on my list. But this game on Steam is remarkably in a wish list rank of 71. So I think a lot of people are looking forward to this. A lot of people are buying into this simply based on the Star Wars license. I think a lot of people are interested in getting into a Star Wars thing that removes the bad taste in their mouth from the postquels. So maybe that has part to do with it. But yeah, as a racing fan, I'm super interested in this game, and I've been playing a lot of anti-grav stuff recently. Fast Fusion, Fast RMX on the Nintendo Switch 2, and then also just kind of I've been going back looking at the information of Red Out and some of the other anti-grav stuff. So yeah, I'm really excited about this one, and this one is right around the corner too.
Nice. Yep. October. Yeah, that game looks gorgeous too. Graphics look unbelievable. Also, I thought it had come out already for some reason. I don't know why. That's why I was watching. I was kind of flipping through the show because I didn't get to watch it live, and I saw that. I was like, why are they even mentioning this one? But yeah, we got another couple months still. But yeah, definitely one to watch. My next game is Warlock Dungeons and Dragons. Big open world.
There we go. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, single player RPG. This game just looks awesome. There's a lot of games obviously that have magic in it, even going back to Skyrim and stuff, but it always kind of seemed like secondary, it was more combat heavy and stuff. But this one seems like you're just there's melee combat in here too, but it's more about the magic and how you kind of use it. You can use the environment and stuff like that. This game just looks really awesome. I don't know. They always show the kind of the title character as a woman, but I don't know if you can customize it or not. But yeah, this game just looks really good. There's I guess some kind of puzzle elements too, but I guess not as it's more kind of platform puzzle stuff that you got to do. Not so much like in Resonance or anything like that, as far as I can tell. So it's more about the combat and stuff. But once again, open world. I'm always attracted to those type of games. So I'm definitely looking forward to this one.
Yeah, I think this is where Game Logic's comment about bit rate and letting things finish online, like it looked a little rough during the presentation, but the combat itself and the flexibility in that and the fluidity between melee and magic was really kind of interesting and seems like it could do a lot in the playground that they're creating.
Yeah, definitely.
Did the combat give off? And this was not a game that made my list of interest. Did the combat give off Veilguard vibes?
A little bit. It definitely felt like I felt. Yeah, I mean, in some ways, like it definitely had some kind of Mass Effect aspects to it, which would hit the BioWare spot. Yeah, I not really. I guess this is where I'm hesitating. Like, I'm trying to remember Game Logic. Like, it reminded me of something, but in some ways, some of that combat, I couldn't place it. Like, it wasn't. It was BioWare in the over the shoulderness and kind of the back and forth, but it felt. Oh well, again, it's a staged playthrough, and so it seems smoother than what it may be when you're pulling up a weapons wheel to switch back and forth between your magic abilities. So it'll be interesting to see what that looks like.
Did they show this whole thing during? I don't remember this being an 8-minute trailer on opening night live.
This part wasn't. No, it started off in a dungeon or in a cave, and you came out like out into a cornfield or a wheat field where there was a orc. And yeah, no. So this, I don't remember all of this being part of it.
No, in fact, the only thing I remember that opening sequence with the other witch or sorceress or whatever there, and that kind of whole like story intro thing. But I don't, quite honestly, I don't even remember any part of the gameplay. I guess I did see this when she bamfed down.
Yeah,
from the top level down.
That's kind of where it started. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, definitely one I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, I might get more interested in this one. Do we know what studio is doing this?
No, I was actually going to try to look for that. A second here. DB, go ahead and go to your next. I'll look it up.
So here's my question before, just for the sake of time and commentary, we're just mashing together opening night live, or the Gamescom opening night live and the Future Game Show? Or are we doing these two separate?
I was going to do them two separate, but if you want to,
go through your whole. I've already done games. I picked 3 games across both lists.
Okay, that's fine.
That's kind of what I thought.
There was some overlap, anyways. So
yeah,
on both shows,
okay, good. Then that is I will take that. Because then the last game that I want to hit on is the journey home. Again, starting with something relatively kind of artsy, kind of platformy. The journey home is looks to be a very kind of artistic side-scroller platform adventure. It's written by Sophie Lee Robbins, who's a kind of a romantic comedy writer, and it looks pretty interesting. Just artistically, visually, I think. The other game that I was thinking of putting on here is the game that comes out tomorrow, which is the new Serious Sam game. But there's plenty of kind of dark, gritty stuff, and so it really kind of set itself apart just by the artistic kind of visuals that it's hitting, and so I wanted to give it a shout out.
Yeah, this is one that made my list. I mean, almost entirely off the strength of the trailer narration. Um, so yeah, it's interesting.
Well,
Uh,
good choice.
just to go back to Warlock real quick, it's Invoke Studios that's developing it. Published by I just had it, Wizards of the Coast, obviously, since they have the license. They've done a couple other games, Live Lock and Dungeons and Dragons Dark Alliance. Dark Alliance is the only one that I've ever heard of. So
The Dark Alliance remaster.
didn't say remaster, it just says Dungeons and Dragons Dark Alliance here on.
Okay.
Well, I'm looking on Wikipedia. So.
Game Logic, do you have a final one, or have we crossed off most of your list here?
Now I've got one more
Okay.
in the quiver. And this almost would have been my game of the show if it weren't for 1001 Threads of Mizan. This is No Law. And this again is another game that significantly benefited from, and this is one of the ones that I'm like poster child example of. Like, I see this game at Gamescom opening night live, and I'm like, I have no idea what this game is. Like, I see where it's set, but I don't really know. Like, I can't. Like, there's so much crazy stuff that goes on during this trailer that I'm like, this feels like Cyberpunk GTA, and I'm not really absolutely certain what the point is. But there was a deep dive by the developers at Future Game Show, and then I was like, oh, okay, now I get it. Now I grok. So this is a game that is really a game of systems. This sequence is like the funniest thing from the trailer for me. When he puts the grenade on the Roomba and then sneaks it up on the guys and blows it up. This is really a sandbox. And what the developers tried to do is they tried to put a bunch of systems and subsystems in place and then just turn the player loose. There are, some loose threads and guardrails where, there's certain things that you can't do because they would break the game. They had to have some singular through, thread through of for the narrative. But outside of that, this is a game very much like Baldur's Gate 3 where there's a menagerie of NPCs, and if you kill an NPC, that NPC is off the board. And so that means you just can't engage with, whatever story thing that they were going to, give you. So I thought that was super interesting. But, overall, their total description of the game as far as they're just not trying to handcuff you and not trying to force you through any particular way, and the providence that you're given, it's very much and I think there are developers on the team who come from the school of Warren Spector and Deus Ex and Dishonored, and that's what they're trying to render, right? It's an immersive sim, but on steroids.
Yeah, it definitely has some of those vibes to it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so yeah, super interested to follow this one through. This one is actually, surprisingly, this one is wishlisted on Steam at a rank of 55. And this amazed me because I'm like, so clearly, literally everyone on Steam must have done what I did, which was watch opening night live. And because if you don't watch the Future Game Show, you really don't have any clue what this game is trying to do. And I'm like, I believe you would have had to have watched that in order to wishlist the game, right, and get it ranked up that high by that many people. So that's really kind of an encouraging thing, this ongoing theme of all the craziness that's going on in the gaming space and, the negative feeling that so many people have about gaming. That is really inspiring to see that there are people who are paying attention to the games, paying attention to studios, watching these shows, pulling threads, and digging deep sufficiently enough to convince them to go wishlist a game that, probably to a lot of other gamers, doesn't even break their radar because, if you watch the thing that's stuck right in front of your face, you don't get it. So yeah, pretty encouraging.
Nice. All right, my final game is Cozy Game that I'm gonna drop in here. Actually, I did have that one on my long list, the No Law, but didn't survive the chopping block there. Into the Wind is what I thought was just like kind of a cozy, like kind of delivery, yeah, kind of going back and forth on this island or this world, which you can do, but also there's fighting evidently. Just watching the trailer from this, I think this was on the Future Game Show, kind of anime-ish style of art. Yeah, you're on this basically on this bike kind of motorcycle, but you can go into kind of flying mode at certain points and stuff. So they show the guy like start off, he's like just delivering a package for somebody, for his customer, and then he's coming back, and then he has to like detour because there's like these pirates on the way he's going. So he detours off, kind of goes around them, delivers a package. Then he's coming back and he's like, hey, you know what? I don't know. I don't have packages now, so I'm just going to go into battle. So then he starts, he's just riding along on his motorcycle, and then the wings pop out and he starts flying, and he's like just dogfighting these airplanes, basically these pirates. So it was just very interesting. Like I was like, I didn't expect that. So and then you can upgrade your vehicle, the motorcycle. You can, I guess there's a house too, where you can upgrade and customize that too. So all the things I like in a cozy game. Plus there's fighting, so that's a bonus. But yeah, it just looked really interesting. So definitely gonna check this one out once it comes out. Just said coming soon. I don't think they had a release date yet for this one. Check the page again. Yeah, even on Steam it doesn't say any. It just says to be announced. So probably more than likely next year, but we'll see. Maybe it'll come out sometime this year.
This would have made my long list too. I was sitting here watching the trailer, and I was like I kept like inching a little bit forward and a little bit forward each time I saw like a little bit. Like I was like, I don't know about this, and then I was like, oh, that looks that looks. And then when he got into the dogfight, I was like, okay, that tips me over the edge. I'll put it on the list.
Yeah, that's where he detours because he doesn't want to fight because obviously he's got those packages. So yeah, that little bit after this is when they start. He kind of flies into the air, and kind of reminds me of the old Mask cartoon toys where you have the different vehicles that do different things. So yeah, here he takes off. It's actually pretty cool. Yeah, just very interesting. All right, I think that would be it for Gamescom, a Future Game Show. Did you guys want to jump into round robin, or if you wanted to hit those other news stories because we're kind of running late on time here? This is a story you really want to jump on.
I could skip these stories. We don't have to cover Gamescom Congress. I'll just mention the one headline. PS5 Pro sells out across major U.S. retailers after GTA 6 reveal. Reseller prices reach $1,300. So, I just point that out to say, and I won't go full blown negative about it. Like there's a commentary that's going on out in social media, and then there is a market reality. This is a headline showing market reality. And then, you can make your own decision and draw your own conclusions about truing those two things up, and choose to believe what you want. But, like I said, that's the objective market reality showing right there that people are still spending money, on consoles. The other thing I'll mention, and again, this isn't to be negative, but this is just to point out like a quick hypothesis that occurred to me as we were ramping up to the show. There's a feeling that there's a concern that, as consoles get more expensive, that people are going to stop buying them. It occurred to me like there's a thing going on in the economy where everything is getting more expensive. And so people are having to make choices. And so in the electronics menagerie for any given person, right? Like phone, television, console, streaming set-top box, other peripheral, other electronic gadgets and devices, people are probably having to make choices about those these days. Laptops and a desktop, right? And we're probably entering a time where somebody can't necessarily have all of those things. And so they're doing down selects. And one thing to bear in mind and consider is that, across all of those things, consoles do a bunch of things, right? It's kind of a convergence device. I hate to lean into that, but it does a thing. And it gives you access to games. It gives you access to music. It gives you access to YouTube. It gives you access to video streaming. And so when people are making choices, and I don't believe everybody's spending in the direction of the big living room entertainment thing, that it's possible that people are saying, hey, I have a limited amount of funds to spend on a smaller subset of gadgets than like other people had to like achieve my comfort or whatever in life. And a console may be one of those things that I select because it's more expensive, but across the array of stuff, it gives me access to a bunch of things, right? Maybe I don't buy a set-top box, because set-top boxes are now, like an Apple TV is getting to be like $200 and $300. Maybe I'm not plunking down $2,000 for a 4K TV, but maybe I'm buying an OLED monitor instead. And so maybe my setup is an OLED monitor, a console, and a Mac Mini or a MacBook Air. Like I get a low end, so like I said, I think there are things going on in the economy that doesn't necessarily mean that because one thing is becoming more expensive, that thing is going to be kicked out. Everything is becoming more expensive, and so it means people are going to down select to smaller numbers of the things that are all expensive.
DB?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And I'll just hit on the Xbox announcement for Dista Digital, which is out to the insiders now. I'm sure we'll cover it when it hits its full release. So let's for the sake of time, let's head into the round robin.
Yep. Yeah, maybe I'll bring that one up again next week just so we can jump into a little bit more details. Game Logic, you had a couple games here. PC games that you're playing, continue to play. A little Assassin's Creed.
So I, along with Resonance, A Plague Tale Legacy, I continue to play through Assassin's Creed Black Flag Resynced as well. I'm now at a point now where I've obtained the Jackdaw, and so I'm engaging in the, nautical and maritime stuff and upgrading the ship and, doing things. It's what's most interesting about this part is, in addition to the traditional Assassin's Creed stuff, this is yet another. So now you have kind of a dual-pronged vector of engaging in player provenance, right? Deciding how you're going to go about playing the game. I talk about this a lot when I talk about Far Cry. Part of the problem with the Far Cry game and an Assassin's Creed game, and any Ubisoft game is, how am I going to go about playing the game? How am I going to go about pursuing quests? What order and structure and sequence, and how am I going to keep from getting distracted, and yada yada yada. What was very interesting in this sequence of obtaining the Jackdaw and the post quill that followed it is that things didn't go according to plan. I took down one brig. I grabbed a bunch of stuff. I was supposed to go to Sandbar Key. On my way to Sandbar Key, I got jumped by another Spanish brig. At first, I'm thinking, okay, I just took down one brig. Certainly, I can take down the second one. But I started taking a lot of damage right away. I checked some specs, and I realized not all brigs are created equal. I started listening to what the crew was saying, was that, hey, Captain, we're outmatched. Like, I don't think we could take this guy down. I was like, oh, you guys have been trying to tell me that for several minutes. So then I decided to turn and run. Interestingly enough, on the navigation channel approach to Sandbar Key, you have to slow down. And then I found out that you can't moor at a place to escape combat. Like, if you're in combat, you can't make a landing. So during this time, the game hasn't taught you, at least I'd skipped it or maybe didn't see it, hasn't taught you how to get to max sail and get to max speed. So I kind of, in a panic, just happened to stumble across and figure that out. Then I'm like, well, what the heck do I do now? I'm supposed to pull into Sandbar Key, but this brig is hounding me. Let me go back out to sea and try and do some evasive maneuvers and maybe shake this guy, cut behind some islands and make it in. I couldn't do that. So I was like, then I pulled up the map and I was like, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to strike for Havana and try and outrun this guy and put into port and get myself repaired. So then I do that. I pull into Havana. I am able to get myself partially repaired, but not fully repaired. So then I started reading some of the tutorials and they were like, yeah, if you can only get partially repaired in port, then, the thing you could do is you can go out and you can jump, a ship that's smaller than yours and like loot them and sack them and use them to fully repair your ship before you scuttle them. So I was like, okay, let me put out to sea. I put out to sea. Game mechanics, I'm now pulling up the spyglass because I'm looking out on the horizon, trying to figure out where the schooners are, but also then trying to make sure there are no brigs in proximity. So I'm tactfully, so again, this is overlaying into, I'm like, oh, this is like my Far Cry experience where I'm on the big map trying to figure out like where to go and like how to proceed and like do all this stuff. So I go out, I jump a schooner, I get fully repaired. I decide I need some more money. So I do take down one brig because by now I figured I can take down one brig on a voyage, but then I can't take on a second one. So I'm like, okay, now I've taken that brig down. Now what I got to do is I do have to get to Sandbar Key, but what I need to do is use my spyglass, look out over the sea, see where the brigs are on my approach. When I see a brig, choose this evasive, course, around them so that they don't detect me. And then I got to pull in a Sandbar Key. Then I got to go back through this tight channel. But in this tight channel is typically a place where brigs set up to patrol. So hopefully, cross my fingers, I pull in. But then I got to make sure, if I do see a brig sails around the corner before he sees me, that I leave myself enough room to. So very intricate, very awesome kind of scripting of, again, playing a game that's in a sandbox, giving you a chance to kind of have your gameplay unfold differently than another player's gameplay. So I'm having a great time.
I loved the frantic kind of excited pace that you described that at, because it matched totally with the gameplay on the screen. Like, and then we're doing this, and then we're doing this, and but that is the beauty of kind of that sea battle, is that there's not a one straight path to it, and that when you're running into it and you're not sure, I really appreciate kind of the excitement that it's giving you, and so it's great that you conveyed it here. So thanks, Game Logic.
The other game that I've been into was I finally got a chance to play Formula Legends, which I think DBQ was also a game that you maybe played the demo of or kind of came across your windshield.
Yeah, this was the kind of arcadey one more so.
Yeah.
Yep.
Been having a good time with it. Obviously, big Formula One fan. So this is a game that kind of takes you through the history of the sport. Gives you, you can cut into any decade or whatever and play through the game. I didn't spend, because was kind of on a compressed time frame, I didn't spend a lot of time kind of surveying the different ways that I could approach it. I just kind of went into, the first tile to the upper left, and that has you go into the various decades of Formula One. And so I'm back in the 50s. So again, it's a great, for somebody who, loves motorsport and is a big history fan, it's a great way to kind of dive into the history. You get unlocks and can unlock and get access to different teams and different drivers. This is a licensed game. So, many of the drivers, if you know the history and you know the sport, you're like, oh, but they really mean Michael Schumacher, right? When they say that guy, but the guy's name isn't Michael Schumacher, right? It's something analogous to it. And same thing with team names. It's what I find most interesting is the pit mechanic. The pit mechanic has you go into the pits and choose and decide what tires you're going to put on. And so the first race that I ran, and there's lots of great kind of information that pops up on the screen. The F1 series by Codemasters, this stuff happens too, but it's much more complex and it's a little overwhelming to a certain extent. This game kind of gives it to you in a more straightforward way. So as I'm going around the track, it's raining, and then I get a pop-up that tells me the rain is stopping. So then when I go into pit, it's like, hey, what tires do you want? Do you want to go back out on wets? Or are you going to take the risk and guess that the rain is finally completely dropping off and you're going to go out on hard tires? It's interesting that they don't give you soft tires as an option, but at any rate, I said to put me on the hard tires. Unfortunately, I guessed right, and the rain dissipated. The other thing is, while you're in the pit, you also have to decide to fuel up. So the first race, I didn't get that. I was like, I think I have enough fuel to finish the race. As I was coming around on the last corner of the last lap, I completely ran out of fuel. I was on fumes. I was able to get across the line and still finish in first, so it worked out okay. The second race, I was like, I have to figure out how to refuel. I realized it's like over on the right, and you pull the right trigger. Like you have to do this QTE while you're in the pits to get your tires on, and that kind of decides what your pit stop time is. Then you got to pull the right trigger to decide how much fuel you want. As I'm in the pit lane, cognitively overloaded with the QTE trying to get the tires on. I realized the fuel thing at the end, and as I'm fueling, I'm like, crap, what lap is this again? And I took out too much fuel. But it was very neat. I do remember in the first game, it was very cool that it modeled that as happens in real Formula One, as I was in the waning laps of the race, I was on low fuel, so I was cutting my fastest lap times, right? Which is exactly what you want in a Formula One event. So, but in this game, I took on in the second race, I took on too much fuel, so I was slower. In the laps, I also came out of the pit lane late because I had spent more time than I should have taking on fuel, so that impacted my placement. So it's very neat in it. it's not like high graphic fidelity, but it models some of the quintessential components of the sport that give you that immersive feel of like being in a Formula One race. So
I think
very
that's
neat
really
indie title.
the key of it, is that it is kind of this more cartoony graphic style, art style to it, but it's got a good layer of depth to it, that it's not the same layer as like a full on F1. But it is, as you just described, right? There's a lot here. So it's a good kind of half step for somebody interested in the sport and wanting to learn it. And the history piece is another kind of angle to that. So yeah, Formula Legends is a really solid game.
I mean, can you? Is it more about like just unlocking the players and doing more of the race to race, like I said, when you're going to the pits and stuff, and not so much like you can't like tweak stuff in between races, or can you do that too still?
Yeah, it doesn't have that, like, so the Codemasters game Formula One has the progression system, right? Of like you're doing R&D, and so you're getting new parts out of the factory and adding those on. So it doesn't have that. The unlocking piece, I think, is really just a nod towards history fanatics who, you like the history of the sport, and you unlock, Arturo Senna, and then you unlock, Niki Lauda, and so you unlock like these famous drivers and cars, and that like hooks you from the historical appeal. But really, it's just about on track performance, race to race. Now it does have a championship system, right? So you are also engaged in a fight for for constructor points and for driver points, and so that plays into it to give you a little bit of that drama. So like I said, I scored like 25 points in the first race, but then scored like 5 points in the second race. So or 15 points. So I've got like 40 points. And so I'm like, I was top of the driver championship, but now I'm fourth, right? So that again kind of amps up like the drama and emotion as I go into the next race.
Nice. All right, DB, had us finish us off here for round robin with your.
I'm not going to talk about
PS5.
too much because we're
right.
past our time. So all I'm going to say is watching the GTA trailer on Netflix. Like I wanted to just go play around in a big goofy sandbox, and so I fired back up Saints Row from 2022, kind of the rebooted one, and it is much more stable than it was when I played it at launch. And it's super cheap, and it's a fun little sandbox to run around and cause some havoc. So yeah, that's all I want to say about that. Like if you're waiting, if you got a GTA itch and you're waiting, there's some pretty good older sandbox games out there that can be had on the cheap. So, and ones that you don't need to install a Rockstar launcher to go back and play as well.
Yes, of course. Yeah, or if you haven't played, if you already played GTA 5 10 billion times, since it's been released multiple times. All right, that's it for the round robin, and pretty much the episode. We'll run through what's coming out this coming week here real quick. So September 3rd, we got 4 games coming out. We got NBA 2K27 for both consoles, Xbox, PlayStation 5, excuse me, and PC. Orbitals comes out on Switch 2, which is that co-op. I believe it's a co-op kind of retro anime style graphics. Blood of the Dawnwalker coming out for PlayStation 5, Xbox Series and PC. And then the final game on September 3rd, Wolong Fallen Dynasty Complete Edition comes out for the Switch 2. On September 4th, we got two games here. My Hero Academia, All's Justice coming out for Switch 2, and Onimusha, I think that's how you say it, Way of the Sword, come out for PlayStation 5, Xbox Series, Switch 2, and PC. So definitely looking forward to Onimusha and the Blood of the Dawnwalker. Anything here going to catch your guys' eyes? And maybe Orbitals eventually.
On priority this week is Blood of the Dawnwalker. That's first watch for me. Review embargo supposedly goes up tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. Eastern, and then the game is out on Thursday. So we'll have a few days to kind of see, how that's being received by critics. The 40 frame per second, or you guys dropped it in the Discord chat, right? The 40 frame per second, 30 frame per second thing, the devs addressed that and said they put a higher priority on on finishing up hardware optimization. And the game will release with a day one patch that provides a 60 frame per second performance mode on console. So again, we'll see how that goes. I assume that the reviewers will not have played with the 60 frame per second patch. So
Yeah,
DB,
probably not
anything?
if it's a day one. For me, my game on my radar this week is not on this list because I forgot to add it, but it is Marsupilami 2. So this is a Microids game. If you remember back from 2022, Marsupilami, I talked about there as a game I really enjoyed. It was a surprise game in my superlative. It's basically Donkey Kong Country. And it's a 2D kind of platformer in that way, and it was such a really smooth game, and it was only like $30 when it launched. So I think this one is 30 or 40, so kind of a double A title. But there's a demo out there, and it plays really well, so I'm looking forward to some Donkey Kong Country type of game.
Nice. All right, that is it for this week for episode number 446. Next week, DBQ Hams will be on primary host duties. Myself and Game Logic co-hosting. Thank you everybody who joined us in the chat. Henry Heck, RPG88, Soldier Boy, Soldier for Life, not Soldier Boy. Here Down Under, anybody else I missed, sorry. But thank you for joining us as usual. Please come back next week, 8 p.m. Eastern, usually on Sundays. We'll see you. Thank you, Game Logic and DBQ Hams for joining me tonight. Everybody out there, be safe, play those games, and we'll see you next week.